Welcome back, gamers and gamerettes, to the greatest gaming podcast known to man, the Monkey Games Cast, hosted by yours truly, the ever luxurious, ever handsome, ever on time, Ramses the Rad, with Heath Ledger's body double, the Sneezing Monkey. Today's topic of discussion, Bethesda.
That's right. After the groundbreaking success of our first episode,
absolutely,
which I'll link down in the description, by the way, so people can go check it out. We're doing another one due to popular demand. People loved it, so here we are talking about Bethesda, and I'm hyped. I'm hyped about this one, okay, because there's a lot to talk about. So it's gonna be great. I want to go back a little bit in the beginning, start with the early days of Bethesda, and then by the end of it, we go to Elder Scrolls 6. But what I'll do is I'll put timestamps into the video. So if you only want to hear us talk about the Elder Scrolls 6 or whatever, then you can click that timestamp. I'll try to keep it condensed. But let's start at the beginning. Bethesda was founded 1986. Okay, I was born 1982, so just 4 years after the greatest human being of all time was conceived, which is me. Also the most modest human being of all time.
Absolutely.
And then, so I guess the first milestone, they did a few games. In the beginning, it's not that noteworthy, right? It really, in my opinion,
they did hockey games, and then they somehow bought the Terminator IP, so they were just known for making hockey games and Terminator games.
Exactly, and that's where it gets interesting, because the first, in my opinion, pivotal moment of Bethesda is 1994 when they hire Todd Howard. Okay. Todd Howards coming in 1994, because if you can't have a podcast about Bethesda without talking about Todd Howard. You know,
for sure.
It has to be. So the first game, so he was brought in as a producer.
Well, if his very first job as Bethesda was a QA tester for I think Elder Scrolls, I think Daggerfall. Like, he was just testing its CD-ROM version. I think.
You see, then you know more than I do, because what I heard is that his first big job was that he was the producer and designer of the Terminator Future Shock, okay?
Oh, yeah, okay, that's true. Yeah, I was talking about his very first job, but yeah, true. He was the producer of the first big job was Terminator, the Terminator game.
Terminator Future Shock, which, by the way, me as an old school kid, I played this game when it came out. Obviously, at that time, I had no idea what Bethesda is or who they are. Just like, oh, cool, a Terminator game. And then later, they also did Terminator Skynet in 1996. And again, he was producer and designer on that game. And then later, he worked as a designer for the Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. Okay, so that's the thing. And I guess, like, we have to talk about Todd Howard, because he is, looking back at it now, and I mean, he's still around, right? He's part of the gaming industry. I'm sure we will see him at, like, whatever game awards, and he does these appearances. But I guess the reason why you have to mention that guy is just because at this point he is such an old school industry giant. You know, he's like on par with, like, Phil Spencer and maybe Reggie Fils-Aimé or something. You know, these kinds of people.
Paul Ryan, what's his name from Sony? Paul Ryan, I think is his name.
Yeah, exactly. So it's these people who spearhead the industry, who really influence the industry.
Can I say something? Controversial yet brave? Todd Howard is to Bethesda what Crash Bandicoot is to Sony. Thank you.
I'm not even going to comment on that. So then, in 2000, right? In 2000, Todd Howard was appointed to be project leader and designer for Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Then. He led
after the absolute financial disaster that was Battlespire and Redguard.
Oh, okay. I did not have that in my. What is that, Battlespire?
Yeah. So, all right. I love how. Okay. So, Todd was the lead designer, or the head honcho over at Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. It was following. Elder Scrolls, I think Battlespire and then Redguard, but I can't remember right now. But Redguard is the first and only one in the series that has already a predetermined character, and it's more like a action game really set in the Elder Scrolls universe. And Battlespire was supposed to be this multiplayer game where you get to make your own character, and the idea was like players could PvP against each other and duel each other. Both games were financial failures. Supposedly at that time, there were talks of even declaring bankruptcy. And so Todd was making Elder Scrolls 3 with the idea that this could very well be the last game published by Bethesda. And I believe it was during Elder Scrolls 3 that Zenimax was created as a not really a parent company. They were basically the same thing. It's just that Zenimax handles the business side, and yeah, that's when I think Bethesda got split in two between Bethesda Softworks, which is the publishing arm, and then Bethesda Game Studios, which is the developing arm. But don't quote me on that, but I think it was around that time it got split in two. And so our man Todd was creating Morrowind. He had learned a lot from Arena and Daggerfall, in that Arena, which by the way, it was supposed to be a gladiator game, which is why it's called Elder Scrolls Arena. They were just kind of stuck with that because the marketing was already done using the gladiator and arena theme. But it became this huge fantasy world with like working banks, and like it's the only game so far, I think. Elder Scrolls Online is catching up, but it's the only game where you could visit all the provinces. It was very big on what's it called? Fucking generation. What's it called?
Not sure.
Like when shit is generated randomly.
Oh, like procedural generation.
Yeah, exactly. It was very big on that. Both games were big on that.
Right.
Both games were very big. Both games were real hell to make. If I remember correctly, I think one of the games, like Arena or Daggerfall, one of Arena or Daggerfall was 450 megabytes, which is nothing now, but at the time, like I think Doom was like 12 megabytes or something. So a 450 megabyte game was quite the load. Both also very buggy. So when Todd came in at Elder Scrolls 3, they were using this new engine, I think Gamebryo, I think it was called.
Right.
So they were using this new 3D engine. Todd was like, okay, originally Morrowind was going to have the whole of Morrowind. As we all know, you only get the island of Vardenfell, otherwise known as Hammerfell in Elvish tongue. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
Huge
so
anyway there. That's... Yeah. Cool.
Listen,
Great.
the
Good
people
story.
need
Cool story,
to know.
bro. Yeah, no, people totally.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, we've lost 89% of our listeners, but that's fine.
No. This is what people love. This is what people tune in to listen to.
So okay, but
Yeah.
that's interesting because the truth is, I did not have like Redguard, for example, on my radar at all, and it's very interesting that at that point they were almost close to a point of like bankruptcy. And then obviously Todd Howard leading design on Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. He then led the creation of Oblivion as well, which both were successful games. I don't have the numbers here, but they were both well received.
Morrowind saved Bethesda from bankruptcy. Like
right,
it was very good for them. Yeah.
And so, because I have not played either of them. I haven't played Morrowind or Oblivion.
Wow.
But I remember at the time when it came out, a friend of mine came out. No, because at that time I was playing Quake and I was very much into the shooter world. I was playing, whatever, the early Call of Duties and stuff.
Too cool for school.
Yeah, like I didn't really understand like what an RPG is at that point, to be honest with you. I wasn't really into it. It didn't tick my box for a game. But I remember I had a good friend and he came over and he was like, you got to check this game out. And he showed me Oblivion. I was like, there's nothing happening. What are you doing in this game? Where are the guns, right? So I was, but anyway, okay. So that's interesting, right? So he was also executive producer on Oblivion. Then he became game director and executive producer for Fallout 3, and then creative director on Skyrim, right? So you can see there's this very fast rise in the ranks for Todd Howard in this company, and I mean, I guess it makes sense from that point when you say they almost went bankrupt and out of business. And then he more or less created and directed Morrowind, which saved them from bankruptcy. Because my theory was, like, because I didn't know this, I was like, who did he sleep with to get to the top? What did Todd Howard do? What did he do? Because you don't rise that quickly.
Yeah.
You don't rise that quickly in these ranks. You know what I mean? It was a bit dubious to me. So I thought there's physical interaction involved there, but clearly it's not. But in all honesty, I think... the other point about that is that in the 90s and like early 2000s, even still, like game development was very different. This company was very different. I found the number of people who worked on all these games that he worked on. When they made Terminator Future Shock, what do you think? How many people worked on that game?
I think 6, right?
It was 14.
Okay.
So these are numbers I found. This is just what I find on the internet. I have to assume that it's probably correct, but like Daggerfall, 29 people. Redguard, 27 people. Morrowind, 56 people, and Skyrim, a whopping 105 people.
Yeah.
Worked on that game, and then going into the later games like Starfield and stuff, we don't really know, but it's obviously significantly more.
I mean, now Bethesda, I think Bethesda Game Studios, which is the developing arm, I think it's like 450 people now.
Something.
Not
like
saying that all of them worked on Starfield, but it's most definitely more than probably double. In my opinion, minimum double what worked on in Skyrim. I would even go so far and say it's a safe bet to say triple what worked on in Skyrim.
Right. And I mean, looking at it now, I'm just looking in the background, like even coming from Morrowind into Oblivion, that was like a big step up, visually, for example. Like Oblivion looks so much better than Morrowind. And I mean,
I wouldn't.
Would you disagree?
I would say that Oblivion neither looks good nor bad. I think Morrowind just it encapsulates that era in gaming. I feel like just, I'm not gonna, it does look better, like, I wouldn't, but it just looks weird, man. It looks bad. I mean, yeah, but that's just my opinion. Oblivion just looks weird, rather. I wouldn't say it looks bad. It looks very, very strange.
I think Oblivion looks much more like Skyrim, just in terms of the visual fidelity and stuff. You can really see how Oblivion led into Skyrim visually.
Yeah, okay. Then in that case, I would say, yeah.
But anyway, it is down to perception. But I think the point is, like, coming from those games, that was the time Morrowind and then Oblivion and then obviously getting into Skyrim. And we're going to break this down a little bit more in more detail in just a second. But that was the time when Bethesda, they were considered innovators, right? They were innovating in the world of RPG games, and they were just the guys, they made the best RPGs. I think this is all crowned then by Skyrim, which was the pinnacle of that type of Bethesda RPG, so to say. But let's take one step back. So in 2002, they were acquired by Zenimax Media, right? That happened in 2002. 2006, they released Oblivion, and then 2008, they released Fallout 3, which was still very, very popular, right? I remember Fallout 3.
Yes.
Friends of mine at the time. I only played a little bit of it, but like that game was very popular. I think a lot of people love it till this day. Would consider it maybe even the best Fallout game that's out there.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. Fallout 3 is not, like, no way. It goes basically New Vegas, then either Fallout 1. I'm being dead. It goes New Vegas, and then either Fallout 1 or Fallout 2, either of them, and then Fallout 3. I think I'll say this though. Fallout 3 was definitely the introduction to a lot of people to the Fallout franchise, but that's a whole different podcast. But anyway,
that's true. So then that's exactly the point. So in 2008, Fallout 3, I think it was well received. Again, it introduced a lot of people to the Fallout series, because I think with Fallout 1 and 2, they were not these fully fledged 3D worlds, right? They were like top down
isometrics.
So isometric type of games. And then Fallout 3, it's a little bit like what GTA 3 did to the GTA series. It made it full 3D, and suddenly you're in this huge open world. So it opened a lot of people's eyes, and they were like, okay, wow, this is amazing. It's the next level Fallout. But then 2 years later, 2010, Fallout New Vegas comes out, right? Which is obviously an Obsidian game, Obsidian Entertainment, but it's published by Bethesda Softworks. So they were kind of involved in it. Also, did you know that this game is not based on the Creation Engine? Fallout New Vegas is based on...
Really?
It's based on an engine that's called Gamebryo engine.
Yeah, that's the same... So, okay, that's a good thing. So, Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3, and New Vegas, those are all the same engine. The Creation Engine is just the Gamebryo engine that they slightly modified, and they named it the Creation Engine.
Oh.
So that's what Skyrim
is the same engine. Okay, fine, fair enough.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I looked it up and I was like, that's interesting. That's very curious that they used a different engine, because that's kind of the problem that I have. With all these games, with all the Fallout games, with all the Elder Scrolls games, like I said, at that time, Oblivion, at that time, and even Skyrim, it still felt fresh. But then later, it just became so repetitive, and you just could see these constantly repeating patterns inside all the Bethesda games. Whether it is how you have a conversation, it looks the same. How you move around, like the dialogue options, all that, might be slightly reskinned, but it is essentially always exactly the same, and it really wore off to me.
I mean, I'll say this. I think what happened to kind of add to what you're saying about the Bethesda formula. If you look at like its rise, or what Todd Howard did, or his biggest innovation, or his biggest influence. Because at this point, Todd Howard is, Bethesda. He has the biggest influence on that company. He's the Bill Gates, if you will, of Bethesda. So what he did is, after Elder Scrolls 1 and 2, and he came into Morrowind. Morrowind was supposed to encompass the whole province. Like I said, it only encompassed Vardenfell, the island in the middle of Morrowind, because he's like, we gotta downsize, because the problem with both previous games is that the scope just kept increasing, and the load just kept getting bigger and bigger, and both games, while loved and seen as innovative, were highly buggy. But they were successful. They were financially and commercially successable. So when Todd came in, he's like, let's just streamline. And it's important to note that the first year of, about the first year of Morrowind's development, they created like the Morrowind like construction framework or whatever, which I think they've made for every single game that they've built, which allows, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's that like construction set that allows all pretty much Elder Scrolls games and Bethesda games in general to be so moddable, because they've literally given you the foundation of what the game is built on.
Right, but you see what's happening there. There's like a trade-off happening, right? On one hand,
I agree.
You're gaining the modability, right? You're gaining the ability to mod, and you're giving these tools to all the fans, which is such an important and unique aspect of all the Bethesda games up to this day, that you can mod them, and totally keeps them alive. You could argue that the reason why so many people still play Skyrim is because of the modability, and you can make it your own. But at the same time, you pay by making many of the games just feel so sameish and so repetitive and so dull, you know what I mean? Almost at this point.
I see what you mean.
But anyway, and to be honest, like, just a quick word on Fallout New Vegas. I loved Fallout New Vegas. I think this is also it's the Fallout game that I played the most. I don't think I finished it all the way, but I did play 2/3 of it. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good game.
That's a lot.
However, I think, to be honest with you, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, to me, to me, Fallout New Vegas felt like a giant DLC to Fallout 3.
I mean, that's what it kind of was supposed to be. It was supposed to be do you know Total War, when they have saga games?
Yes.
It's like not a mainline game, it's a saga. So they did basically take Fallout 3 and they reskinned it, but I think they still succeeded in what they were trying to do. It still runs like sticks and stones. It still runs awful. Yeah. But I agree with you. It is basically just a huge DLC for Fallout 3.
But it is better. Ironically, I mean,
New Vegas is good.
Yeah, you get this sometimes, right? Like some of the Skyrim DLC, people said that was better than the main story. I think some people was like the Witcher 3 DLC and other games. They were like the DLCs are better than the main story. Even now with what was it? Cyberpunk 2077, the DLC, a lot of people said it's really, really good. So it's not unusual, but it felt like a massive DLC that actually was better than the main game, so to say.
Yes.
Anyway, then 2011. That was the year. Okay, Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim comes out. So that was huge. And I remember hearing podcasts like 10 months before that game even was on everyone's radar.
Yeah.
And people in podcasts were like a German gaming podcast, I remember specifically, and the guy was like, guys, listen, I visited Bethesda last week for another game, and they showed me this thing called Skyrim. That game is going to be a killer game, right? Like, and people were already like foreshadowing it, how good that game is going to be. And I was like, okay, that was the first time I heard of Skyrim ever. I was like, okay, wow, right? And then it came out, and it did hit like a bomb. I looked up the player numbers recently, like today, I think 2 days ago.
It's still very, very good.
Dude,
it is still very
close to 30,000 people on Steam.
Yeah. That's more than a lot of like that is like a medium large like online game.
Yes.
Like that is a successful. I think, by the way, if you look it up, it has more players than Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, probably. I would guess so. Yeah. So great game. I loved it. I mean, obviously Skyrim. Not gonna lie, Skyrim to me was my first proper introduction into RPG games. Like,
that is very sad.
I know.
That is very sad.
No, but it's actually sad for you because you're such a freaking nerd who spends all their life in ridiculously sad RPG games, you know, from your young age. I mean, how old are you? 14 or something? So you're spending so much time in RPG games instead of going out and touching grass, which is what I did. You know, playing Call of Duty, Quake, and touching grass. That was my life. And boobs every now and then too. Okay, so
boobs,
big difference between you and me as well. So
Big difference, big boobs.
Big boobs, big difference. You get the point. But I loved Skyrim, and it really had me by the balls for like a month and a half or something. I played it every day, all the time. I loved it. So yeah, great game. And at that time, coming back to the point of the creation engine, it wasn't. That wasn't a big point. I think when people played Skyrim, it was not like, oh, screw the creation engine. It's just another regurgitated version of a Bethesda formula game. It still felt fresh. It felt really like the pinnacle of what they did with this engine, with the Bethesda formula, with everything that sits around it, right? Like, it felt great. Then, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, you probably could give a 20-hour monologue about Skyrim. But
no. I wouldn't talk a lot about Skyrim. I will say that Skyrim was basically like if Morrowind saved them from bankruptcy, Skyrim made them a billion-dollar company.
Right.
Like, it's difficult, and I think it's impossible to overstate the importance of that game to that whole company. And I will say. It was around Fallout 3, one of the biggest criticisms of Fallout 3, and we'll get into this later because this is an issue with Bethesda, if we have time, obviously.
Yeah.
We may or may not start it late because of me. Anyway, point is, that one is when Emil Pagliarulo, damn, I'm going to butcher that name, but it is what it is. He was the writer for the one of the most praised storylines in the whole series, the Oblivion Dark Brotherhood storyline. He wrote that. However, he was made head story writer. Now, the problem with being it's a completely different job from being a story just a quest writer to a full-on lead story or the lead story writer. And he was the lead story writer for Fallout 3. And one of the biggest criticisms, I'd say, in fact, the biggest criticism of Fallout 3 was the very, very bad writing. Fallout 2 and Fallout 1 were some of the best and we got to keep in mind, an RPG is all about every playthrough being different. It's a role. You make a role for yourself. Obviously, it's not like infinite, and it is predetermined in some way, but Fallout 3 was just non-existent. There was a non-existent role for you to play, and it just kept getting worse. And Skyrim, I think he was also the lead writer on Skyrim. And Skyrim, there are no roles to play. You are nothing. You are constantly a blank slate. But obviously no one cares about Skyrim. No one cares about the story about Skyrim because they managed to do a lot of small things very, very good. Like the combat in Skyrim is shit. Or is poo-poo, rather.
I would disagree with that. I quite enjoyed it.
I will say that it is... I see what you mean, but genuinely, it is impossible to die in Skyrim. It is very easy. There is no tactics in Skyrim.
That's fair.
There's nothing.
It's
no
a very
dodge
casual
button,
RPG in that sense.
Exactly, but it is the most accessible fantasy action game out there.
Yeah.
Nothing will come close. And I will also say, when I say they do a lot of small things very well, I mean like something like how that sound when you level up a skill and it pops up and it just shows it moving a little bit. Like these are all small dopaminergic signals for your brain to keep going. And it was just so good at all the little, like, every 5 meters you're running into a location or you're running into a cave. So yeah, and it's been re-released to hell and back. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's
released,
right.
Their billion-dollar company, and then
that was the real next big level. So you can see how at this point Bethesda's rubbing their hands and they're like, yeah, we did everything right with Todd Howard. He should be in this position because he's the face, he's the guy. Like the writer you just mentioned. Of course, they had a great team at that time.
Emil.
That pulled all this together. But at the same time, I think it is like he's the big face behind it, Todd Howard. So people were really happy. Then, however, I think this is the pivoting point for Bethesda. 2015, Fallout 4 comes out. And Fallout 4, right?
16 times the detail, 4 times bigger.
So
we'll never forget that.
So they made all these promises, right? And that was also the moment where, like, because previously they didn't oversell Skyrim. That game just came out and people loved it and it was hype. But this was the moment where also a lot of people then came forward and Todd Howard started his career as like this brutal corporate shill that often when you read threads around Bethesda and around Todd Howard, there are a lot of people who say, I hate Todd Howard because he's such a corporate shill.
What you mean. I see, but I will have to remind everyone that this man really came on, I can't remember which show. but Todd Howard did come on a show and said Fallout 3 had 200 different endings. That didn't happen. So Todd Howard has this huge bad habit. Same thing with Starfield. He said, oh, you can hack doors or whatever, which I don't know what's up with these space games and hacking. Same thing, what's his name? No Man's Sky had the same thing. But anyway, the point is, he has promised a lot consistently throughout his career, and I would only disagree. It's just that Fallout 4 made it horrifically evident just because of how bad and how streamlined, rather, the game is. That being said, it is still the most played the most popular Fallout. Second, I think in second place is New Vegas, but I will only say that for the same reason that Skyrim is the most popular, well, for a lot of reasons, but Fallout 4 is popular because of its modability, in my opinion.
To be honest, I would go as far as saying Fallout 4 is not even that popular. It is popular in terms of player numbers, don't get me wrong, right?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
It's definitely popular in terms of player numbers. It added another layer of popularity to the Fallout series, which then ultimately also led to the Prime TV show they made, right? Like, you can now build on this franchise. It became
which was good.
Yeah, which was good. It's a great show. I would say
Bethesda W.
I would say the show was better than Fallout 4 personally. But
100%.
But again, Fallout 4 was, in my opinion, it was more popular, higher numbers and stuff, because it's a new Fallout franchise, which was huge at that time, but it wasn't as positively received as Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 even, I would say. Like, when those games came out, people loved them. There was almost just praise from all sides. You know, Fallout New Vegas, everyone amazing. Fallout 3 the same. When Fallout 4 came out, it was like, it's okay.
Well, if you remember, that's first of all, you're correct, but and the biggest thing people were angry about was how bad the dialogue options were. Do you remember?
Yeah.
You had like 4 choices: funny, serious, sarcastic, and like I can't remember the other one, angry or whatever.
Yeah.
It was the epitome of a lot of what people hated Bethesda for, unfortunately, or people disliked, or people critiqued Bethesda for. Another horrific thing that I really have to mention is Bethesda's inability to make a fast and quick introduction to their game. Compare Fallout 3's introduction with Fallout New Vegas. I'm stealing this from H Bomber Guy 100%, but yeah, H Bomber Guy has a great video on New Vegas. But in Fallout 3, like, you have this, you start out as a kid, and then you're running around, and then you do this, and then you time skip, and then it takes forever for the intro of Fallout 3 to be over. Fallout New Vegas, you get shot in the head. Yeah, well, whatever. It's the opening of the game. There's no spoilers. You get shot in the head. You wake up. The doctor's like, all right, you're good. And then you leave. Literally within 15 minutes, depending on how long you spend on the character creator, or 10 minutes even. And Skyrim, very long intro. And then in Fallout 4, it's even longer. Every single time you start a playthrough, you have to go with your wife and put the kid and meet the thing and meet the guy who knocks at your door. Like, it was just a lot of what people have critiqued Bethesda for since I would say really the beginning of like Fallout 3 or even Oblivion.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit like a red thread through all the newer Bethesda games, and I call Fallout 4 as part of that as well, that there's always a lot of feedback from the community where people are like, this, we do not like this, and they just don't care. They just do it anyway, right? And part of that is also, in my opinion, I think Fallout 4, that was the moment where for the first time we could clearly see the limitations of the creation engine. You know, that game came out, and it's like that already, it doesn't feel contemporary, you know what I mean? You could see that they try to tickle more out of the textures and out of the light and the shadow, and they try to do what they can with the limitations of this engine. Again, probably keeping in mind that they do want to maintain the modability and provide that as part of the game, but you could really see it. So I think at that point, people were like, ugh, you know, I was hoping for more. I remember when Fallout 4 came out, and we got our eyes on it and actually got to play it. I was like, I wish this would have been more, you know, visually, narrative. I just hope they would do like a proper 2.0 version, but it didn't feel like a 2.0 version. It felt like the same thing again with slightly better graphics, but overall it's just the same, and not even a better version. You know, even the things they repeat, they don't do better. And then 2018. So this was 2015, right? Fallout 4 comes out.
Quick mention as well to Elder Scrolls Online, which came out 2014.
Oh yeah, right,
which,
exactly. So actually, I don't even have this on my list, but I think that's still running till today, right? Some people are playing this game.
It is running. Yeah, no, it is running till this day. I think I quickly read that even in 2015 they announced that they're no longer going to be having these, like, I think they were releasing like basically one big content like pack every year. Now they're going to be releasing a seasonal pack. Every like season now, so I think every 3 to 4 months I think they're gonna have a new like which is literally industry standard, but it's Bethesda, so they're like 5 years behind always.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's an MMO, so I think that made it really not interesting for me, because I just don't like, you know, these bullet sponging stuff, and you shoot at the enemy with 20 times and it's just little numbers popping up over the head. This is stuff that I didn't like.
I will say,
yeah,
the additions to the lore was very nice.
Okay, great. Let's move on quickly because nobody cares about that. So then Elder Scrolls Online. It's actually interesting you mentioned this, because you can see at that time they're like, guys, we need to create more games as a service. We need to create more games that are not like Skyrim, a single player game, or Fallout 4. We need more games as a service. So obviously Elder Scrolls Online was part of that. Here's an MMO, you can play it forever, you know. And the other game that tried to play into that vein that was announced, you know where we're going. That was announced at E3 in 2018 was Fallout 76. Fallout 76. It just works, okay?
Oh my god.
It just works. That's what it was all about. It was about just working. And I remember watching this presentation. And Todd Howard even caveated the whole thing. He was like, guys, listen, it just works. But at the same time, this is the first time we're trying something like this. So you guys have to cut us a little bit slack here, right? Yeah. And it might not be perfect on day one. But it was the weirdest presentation. Him on stage with his leather jacket and stuff. Like, what a weird moment.
He knew.
He knew. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how far it was off from launch. When did the game launch? So I think you're right. During that presentation, he already knew, because I just checked it and the game came out the same year. So at E3 2018, they showed it kind of for the first time. And that's obviously, like, E3 is always like June, right? And then it came out in November, right? So November the same year, this game came out. And it was one of the most disastrous launch ever. Yeah. So I'm just checking it. Still 8,000 people are playing it. 24-hour peak is 13,000. So it's not that bad. And the all-time peak is 72,000 for Fallout 76 on Steam, right? Obviously, it's other platforms as well.
I'll tell you this. My only point of comparison of a large online game that I played was Smite. And for Smite, which was definitely not on the scale of 76, I mean, Smite needed like 15,000 or 12,000 players or so. So I mean, if it's lower than Smite 1, then we're running into a lot of problems. Also, everything about that game was bad. Even I don't know if you know this, but if you look up the collector's edition, like, there was a bag that came with the collector's edition and it looked like a duffel bag, and then like something you could use to gym, and then it came in people's mail, and it was just like, I don't know, like, it just was crumply and the quality was bad and it was very small. Everything about that game was bad, like, genuinely.
Yes, that's right. They failed on every single level. Now I remember the duffel bag that they showed, and then when actually people received it, they were like, Jesus Christ, it looks nothing like the picture and stuff. It's so cringy. I remember that during this presentation, Todd Howard actually promised that every single, don't get me wrong, I think it was that every single NPC would not be an NPC but an actual player. So if you come to a town and there's like this trader or whatever, that would be an actual player who runs this shop and stuff.
Great job, Todd.
Yeah, great job. It's like you overpromise, you promise everything and deliver nothing. I don't want to say nothing, but like, it's not great. Again, both of these games still run today, Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76. So it feels a little bit like they could have shut it down a long time ago, but they're too proud to do it. I don't think it makes them significant amounts of money, personally. But yeah, they keep them running. I played Fallout 76 at some point. Was it on Game Pass or something? I think I did a stream, and it was... I was bored. I did not like it. And that's like a year ago, less than a year ago. So...
I remember.
Yeah, it was not a fun game to play, to be honest. But I guess the bigger point here is that launch in late 2018 of Fallout 76 really damaged Bethesda's reputation. Kind of similar to Ubisoft, we spoke about it in the last cast, like... when you have that launch, the game comes out and it's just so buggy and broken. It's a disaster, and it sticks with you. Even you fix it, and now I think Fallout 76 is fine. You know, you can play it. It's not particularly buggy. But like once people remember that, it sticks in people's head the way this comes out, right? So again, like coming from Fallout 4, the limitations of the creation engine, then Fallout 76 presentation and terrible failure. It's like, we're getting into bad territory here. The crown of Todd Howard is like shaking. You know, it's
slipping.
Like it's sliding down.
Quick. Re-release Skyrim immediately. And they did.
Skyrim is like, here it is again. So everyone loves it.
Special edition.
Yeah. It's like, don't look over here at this terrible launch of Fallout 76. Look over here, special edition Skyrim. And people are looking.
I think just 2 years later or something like that. On top of Skyrim Special Edition is when they announced the Creation Club, which was their paid mods idea. Which was a horrific failure that a lot of people were against. And instead of creating, they did back down. They're like, all right, we're not going to sell these mods. Instead, we're going to package them together in a new version of Skyrim called Skyrim Anniversary Edition. I guess just a quick, because that was also a very, very, it just, like, once you start slipping down the staircase, you're falling down, like, a lot of stairs.
Yes, yes, that's right. So that was the moment where it did not look good. But 2018 was a big year for Bethesda, because not only did they launch Fallout 76 and tease it, and it was a terrible launch, at the same E3 they showed this Elder Scrolls 6 teaser trailer. The same E3.
Oh yeah.
2018 we got the trailer, and was it like 7 years ago now, right? 2018. I'm doing the math.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me, man.
So that's still the only thing that we've seen of this game ever. And I think Todd Howard even said specifically at some point he really regrets that they showed it at that time, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
He's like,
we may have shown that a little too early. I'm like, too early? It was like 5 years after Skyrim. What the
That's insane, right?
Come on, dude.
Skyrim came out 2011. Now it's 2025, man. That's like 14 years. For 14 years. I guess the biggest problem with that Elder Scrolls 6 teaser trailer was like their messaging should have really been on Starfield at that time. Yeah, you know, it was like, that's the next big thing. We're doing Starfield. Here's a teaser or something, you know, that gets people going on Starfield, but they didn't do it. They weirdly shoved in this Elder Scrolls 6 trailer. I honestly, I don't even know till this day what the idea and the thinking behind that was. Were they at the position where they felt that could come out in the next year or two, and that's why they showed it? Why otherwise would you do this? You know, why would you have this communication? It makes no sense at that time.
And I think it also shows just how, like, sloppy at this point Bethesda was being. Like, oh yeah, we have this space game that's, you know, according to Todd Howard, 25 years in the making. Let's not show that. Let's show a game that isn't even in pre-production, I think. Like, anyway, yeah.
That's it. So we got the trailer. Elder Scrolls 6 is a thing. I guess that's all it did. It's like, and people, till this day I see posts of people analyzing the screenshots from that teaser trailer, being like, that's this city and that's this city.
They're just all me, like all my different burner accounts speaking to each other, just like desperate to keep this game alive.
That makes sense. I mean, it will come at some point, and they have confirmed that it will also be based on Creation Engine, which is, anyway, we'll get to that. Maybe do a little segment.
No, Creation Engine 2. There's a difference. All right?
Yes, the number behind the name is the difference. That's
exactly. Because Starfield was Creation Engine 2, if I remember correctly.
Yes, and it looked like garbage for a game that came out 2023. So anyway, quick point in between. So 2018, Elder Scrolls 6 teaser trailer. Then 2020, Microsoft acquires Zenimax for $7.5 billion. Okay, so that was the big acquisition. I don't think we need to talk a lot about that, but now Bethesda is part of the Microsoft umbrella. Now they're owned by them. 7.5 billion is still wild. I mean, the whole Star Wars universe, I think Disney bought it for $4 billion from George Lucas.
Yeah.
So to pay 7.5 billion for ZeniMax is like, okay. But they did.
It's called inflation, in my opinion. I think that's just inflation. I think if you like account for inflation, I still think Star Wars beats it out.
Maybe, possibly.
When did they buy Star Wars? Like early 2000s?
A bit after. I'm guessing 2010.
Was that
something?
was it before or after the McDonald's dollar menu? Because if it was like before the McDonald's dollar menu, then yeah, those were for
2012. 2012 they acquired it.
Okay. Well, okay,
So.
yeah, that was during the dollars menu. Yeah, that was when the dollar was good, homie. That's anyway.
Good old times. So anyway, so then 2023, finally, the highly anticipated, everyone wants to see what it is, Starfield comes out.
No one wants to see what it is. No one wants to see what this fucking game is.
Starfield came out, and God, what a disappointment that game was. Because, like, I was really hyped for it. I remember seeing the very first trailer, the teaser trailer they basically had, where you just see the space station. It was just this golden winged space station. It had a name. I forgot the name now. But like you saw that and it was so cool. And I was like, okay, this is cool because it came out. I don't know when they showed the first trailer, but it must have been also, it was early, like 2018, 2019. We saw this first teaser trailer. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, Bethesda is making a space game, right? And I was hyped. I was like, that is interesting. And then the closer we got to the release, we saw gameplay. They teased us a bit of what the game will be and how it looks. And I was like, yeah, my excitement and hype was melting away like a snow cone in the sun. Honestly, it was like just
tears
sad.
in the rain. Like tears in the rain.
Tears in the rain, basically. And I mean, there's a few things you can talk about the engine here, because first of all, they reused Creation Engine again, but it's Creation Engine 2 now. And I have to say, you could see an improvement in landscapes, right? And in lighting. Lighting was improved, but only marginally, I would say.
But that's kind of like taking putting like an eagle's wings on a duck, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a really good good metaphor, because they're not doing something that's new, that's fresh. It was still the old thing. It still felt like a freaking Fallout game. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yes, it's in space and all that, but it still felt like you jumble up all the previous IPs they have, put it in a blender and add a bit of sci-fi feel to it, and here you have Starfield. That's how it felt, and it was just so underwhelming visually, but also narratively. Like, it till this day, it upsets me so much that you're the Starborn. Like, what's wrong with them? They can't do that. That's insane. How did they get away with that? You know what I mean?
And you have force powers too, so you can roleplay as Darth Vader. Isn't that great?
It's so offensive and just insulting to anyone's intelligence who has played Skyrim.
Total ripoff of Dragon's Dogma, where like you're revealed. Spoiler warning, but like you're revealed to be like a god player, and then you fight your old. You fight yourself, but you fight the the person that came before you to save the world. But if you replay the game on New Game Plus, that person becomes your old character. So you're fighting your character that you built. So like nothing. It's just like wow, you've done it again, Todd.
Right,
home run for the Toddsters.
Done it again, and it's like it's just so uninspired. You know what I mean? It's so uninspired. Skyrim felt so uninspired, and it already felt a little bit like, because they were doing this. It had a name, I forgot, but this like NASA futurism,
NASA punk, baby.
NASA
right?
Punk.
That's so what they called it.
It is still grounded in reality and in our current space program, but it's also punk and sci-fi. And
and I was like, I can't believe nobody in the meeting room was like, "Hey guys, we just said two oxymorons right there. Like nothing about NASA is cyberpunk." I don't know why they thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, I also don't understand why they thought that was a good idea, because it felt so flat. And also, honestly, like you see it now with a game like Avowed, for example, and there's a few other ones. I mean, look, Starfield was long before AI. Not long, but it was before AI. But Starfield already felt like it was partially AI generated. You know what I mean? Like, it did not 100%. Have the like, if you go through Skyrim and you discover these ruins on the top of the mountain, you're like, oh, an artist handcrafted these ruins. You can see 100%. It felt real. Here it's just like, oh, another station that looks exactly like the other station on that planet. And it's just like regurgitation of content, of asset. It felt so and again, the whole art direction of the game felt AI generated and not human in a weird way. It's strange stuff.
And then the gall to be like, oh, by the way, guys, the planets that you visit and stuff, most of it will be empty. And then people are like, okay, but like, why? And they're like, well, actually, space is mostly empty. So, I mean, it's pretty immersive and accurate. And I was like, wow, Bethesda. Just the gall to say that. And then the cherry on top of the cake was like a bunch of like modders for Starfield. Supposedly I heard that primarily a lot of mods for Starfield are Star Wars mods because of course, but there was that famous thing where like a month, like 3 months after it launched, like one of the biggest modders in like the Elder Scrolls or the Starfield community was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna stop working on this game because it sucks." Like literally, like verbatim, like that's what he said. So. Yeah. They just could not find a break, by the way, I appreciate this game because it was one of the early Sneezing Monkey days. The whole community like came together, and not to brag or to give myself some to give myself self-fellatio here. But that game, I was 900% right about that game. I said it wasn't going to be buggy. I said it was going to be boring and mediocre. And lo and behold. And by the way, last thing. The faces in Starfield look like HD renderings of the faces in Oblivion. Thank you.
Yes. No, you're right. You're right. That's exactly what it is. It felt so dull, so uninspired. I looked at the player numbers as well. So while currently still close to 30,000 people are playing Skyrim, Starfield is 4,200. So it's significant. I mean, it came out many years after Skyrim, so it was not received well. People didn't like it, but it's exactly like you say. It feels like not just like the 3D models and all that, but it feels like at this point, and that's my big worry, kind of coming to the conclusion here about Elder Scrolls 6 in the end.
Yeah,
Bethesda is chasing an outdated model at this point. The models in the game, the environments, the conversation animation, the whole RPG. RPGs have moved on, you know? We have other games that show you how RPGs are done. I don't know, Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever. You know, you have games that really show you a next level RPG with real options and real influence on the world and what you can do. And Bethesda's still like, no, the Elder Scrolls 6 will still have that freaking same interaction thing where you see the character and he's like, oh, you must be this person that I heard about. Welcome to the station. It's like, oh, God.
There's a nip in the air. Yes. Cold air isn't good for my crops. All right, thanks, Pelagius, whatever. Thanks.
So they are, I think, honestly, they are literally resting on that formula that they have. Ironically, very similar to Ubisoft, like we spoke last time, where they have this formula that 7, 8, 10 years ago still worked and was exciting, but they never made the point to say, guys, we now need to draw the line. What they would have need to do already with Starfield, right? To be honest, ideally already with Fallout 4 they should have done this, is to say we're skipping, we're dipping, no, what's the word? We are scrapping, skipping, dipping. We're getting we're getting rid of the creation engine. We're getting rid of the creation engine. Our next game, not creation engine 2 and better lighting and nicer landscapes. Screw that. We're losing the creation engine. We're going on whatever it is. You know, make it Unreal Engine, make it anything else. Like, come up with a new idea, build it from scratch. Build it from scratch. Because the big problem that I feel with Bethesda is like, when they plan a game, and this is, I promise you, it's gone behind the scenes right now with Elder Scrolls 6, they're like, well, the dialogue system, we already have that. Let's put that on the whiteboard. We already have that. That's done. That's one of the pillars of our game already. You know, it's like, no, you need to step away from that board and say, what is dialogue? How does it work? And how can we create a true 2.0 version of that and then implement? I understand that takes longer because now you can't reuse your little funny assets and systems you already have in your engine. It's more work and takes longer, but the reward...
But they definitely had the time and money to do exactly what you're saying, especially after Skyrim, and they didn't, so...
Yeah, and we don't even have anything close to release date for Elder Scrolls 6.
Oh, no.
So it's
we can dream about it. We can dream about playing that game.
Look,
you know?
I'm 42 years old. I'm not sure I'm going to see it in my lifetime, to be honest with you.
Oh, no.
But point is, they should have drawn that line a long time ago, and now they have confirmed that Elder Scrolls 6 still creation engine. Dude, that's why this game is... It can't live up to the hype, I guess is what I'm saying. It just can't.
There is no hype. That's the thing. That's what I was gonna get at. It's the genius of Todd. Just when you think he's out, it's like that which Al Pacino movie? He's like, what? Once I'm out, they pull me back in. That's Todd Howard. He's like, He's actually 5D chess playing us all. He's like, I'm gonna ruin Bethesda's whole reputation, so nobody has any expectation. In fact, the expectation for Elder Scrolls 6 is gonna be so bad that when it comes out and it's somewhat decent, people are gonna praise me, and it's gonna be Skyrim 2 all over again. And your old man Todd will be rolling in quiche, and it's gonna be everyone's. We're gonna have a huge party with Long John Silvers, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, to be honest, they haven't even started like the marketing wave for it and all that. So I'm sure once they get closer to release. What's your guess? When will this come out? Elder Scrolls 6? What year?
Okay, so Todd's really big on. I think ever since Skyrim, he's really what Starfield released like 11/11/11, like September.
Yeah.
Or no, 9/9/9, I think. Yeah, 9/9/2023. Yeah, he's big on stuff like that. He's a bit into astrology, that Todd. So I'm thinking like 3/3/2033, February the 3rd of February.
2033. Is that what you're just saying?
Yeah. No, yeah, 2033. 2000. I mean, that's serious. 2033, February 3rd.
No.
So it's 3/3/3.
No, dude, it's gonna come before that. They can't wait another 8 years with that game. That's not. They can't do that.
They can. They will. Watch them do that.
No, but okay. Here's the thing.
Or,
I think because
here's the thing. It's gonna be like the year is gonna be tied to the month. So if it's coming out, let's say 20. This is not coming out 20. But maybe 2028. But like if it's coming out, for example, 2027, it's gonna be like 777. You know what I'm saying? 2777. Like it's just gonna be something like that. I know it's gonna be something like that.
No, I mean,
and quote me on it.
You're completely right that
Quote
Todd Howard loves this kind of stuff with the numbers. You're definitely right, and I think that's a fair guess to have like the 7/7/27 or whatever it is. But they can't wait another 8 years because at the moment, I mean, they could. You're right, but at the moment, I think we've seen it. They're not producing anything for Starfield anymore because nobody's playing the game, so they've just like given up on it. That game is down the drain now.
25 years in the making, 2.5 years playing, unfortunately.
with only what was it, 4.2 thousand players at the moment.
Yeah,
at
just above 4,000 players.
So it's not looking good. So, but that means in conclusion, if they're not working on Starfield anymore, a new DLC, they're probably on high production at the moment. Elder Scrolls 6.
Mm-hmm.
They like I think that's what else are they working on? There's nothing else that could be in the works, right? That we wouldn't know of.
I mean, you never know.
Fair enough.
It's like Nintendo. It never gives you what you want. It's always like, oh yes, but what about this game? It's like, yeah, but can you make Mario on phone? They're like, no, we will not be making Mario on phone. You know.
And so it's
yeah,
true.
I mean,
they might announce something that we don't know of yet, but I assume they're working on Elder Scrolls 6 at the moment.
And I would also say Zenimax, like Arcane Studios, the same studio that made Prey, that shut down. And just across the gaming industry, this is a whole other podcast, but across the gaming industry, we've seen like studio after studio shut down, layoff after layoff. I think it's been like, oh my god, I can't since 2022, I would say. Yeah. So in a way, Bethesda is kind of finding itself in the same, definitely not same exactly, but in the same somewhat position as when Morrowind was coming out. It needs a good game, kind of similar to Ubisoft, I guess, but I mean, it already got acquired, so it doesn't have to worry about that. But I mean, I would only assume that they're working on Elder Scrolls 6, as you said. I mean, I still think it's a long way off. I mean, all I know for sure from the little things we've seen, I think it actually might take place in the Iliac Bay again. Or Hammerfell, because I did see, you have no idea how many times I've watched, like, there's this one video, I don't know if you know this, but there's a woman called Skyrim Grandma. She's this very elderly lady.
I know her, yeah.
Yeah, she has, I'm subscribed to her channel. She's wonderful. She plays Skyrim. She's officially in the game. There's, like, this cute video that Todd Howard made of them like putting that little 3D cap on her and taking her face and rendering. And that's also, we got like a glimpse because some designer was working on like a Dune or whatever. So I was like, oh, is that a Hammerfell? I mean, are we north or south of the Sea of Ghosts or whatever? Anyway, point is, I think they are definitely working on Elder Scrolls 6. I hope that they streamline it less, although I have an intense feeling that they will make this Skyrim 2 in its overall
Yes.
design.
Yes.
To be honest with you, I think Avowed, something like that, I think that's what I'm expecting. Except the writing will actually be somehow worse.
Yes,
And unfortunately, we didn't get to hit on it. Obviously, my fault. I came in late. But we didn't get to hit on just... Bethesda makes RPGs for people who really hate RPGs. Like, there's no role for you to play, especially in Fallout 3 and Skyrim even. You're already predetermined to be, the guild leader and whatever. There's no intersecting storylines. You can play one character and do everything. You can go through the Mages Guild and not cast a single spell. But we've hit on it. But yeah, that's it. I think they need Elder Scrolls 6 to be a home run, but in my opinion, it's gonna be like Avowed. And I love Obsidian. I'm sure Avowed is an okay game.
Nah.
But yeah, it's gonna definitely
It's not
be
great.
Avowed.
It's really not great. Again, the big problem with Avowed is the writing, but let's not get into that. That's a different podcast. I can do like a final prediction here as well. I think you're right. I think Elder Scrolls 6 will basically be Skyrim 2. They're going to be like, that's how it worked back in the days, and people loved it. Let's do that again. There's going to be a lot of that stuff in there.
Remember when we were rich? It'll make us rich again.
We're just doing it again, right? And so from the engine to the pacing of the game, they try to repeat it, and that's obviously a mistake. You should never just try to repeat your success. You should understand why it was successful and then really build on it, almost reinvent it. They have enough time to do it. So I think it's going to underwhelm in that level. I think release year is going to be 28, 29. I think we're 3-4 years away from this game. I think they're further down the road.
I'm sticking with 333, baby.
Yeah, I mean, you're crazy, dude. Like, 2033 is insane. That's insane. I mean, they can't wait. What are they going to do in the meantime? They just have nothing? So, anyway.
I mean, Todd Howard can learn how to sew. He can learn how to knit, Maybe he gets into blankets. Maybe we'll hook him up with Kath. They can have a crochet club together.
That is a great idea.
Thank you.
But I think it might just be that he's postponing it to keep his job. He's like, if we never release Elder Scrolls 6, I will be in this position forever, right? We just stay.
He's like
stay
the Emperor in Star Wars. He's like, I need a new body.
Yes, exactly. You bring him a new body, and we never get the game, but we get another teaser in 3-4 years. So anyway, my theory is we're 4 years away from this game. But then, and this is the boldest prediction of them all, I think the game, it will be financially successful, right? Like Starfield, it was financially successful because people were hyped.
Really?
So, oh yeah. It sold a lot of copies.
Wait, adjusted for inflation or?
Yeah. Like, I think it sold the most copies of any, I mean, besides Skyrim maybe over the years. Yeah. But in terms of launch, it was one of the most successful games, I believe. I mean, don't let me lie. So Elder Scrolls Skyrim, over 60 million units sold. But I mean, obviously you have to, it's not just launch sales. Yeah. Then Fallout, 25 million sold. Starfield, how many did that sell?
Wow, listen, man, the fact that you're having to scroll down all that way.
Yeah, that's true. Starfield sits directly in the middle, stated 657 million in sales. So that's dollars, not how many copies it sold. Okay. But anyway, I remember that it was fairly financially successful, but the reviews hated it. Like, people hated it. It was not perceived well. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Elder Scrolls 6. It's going to come out. It's going to sell a whole bunch of... It's going to be on Game Pass. It's going to sell a whole bunch of copies. And then ultimately, that will be the downfall of Bethesda. That's my prediction. Because they are unwilling to change. They're going again with Creation Engine, and they're maneuvering themselves in a similar situation as Ubisoft, where they rely too much on never changing anything. And Elder Scrolls 6 will be the pinnacle of that. It will basically bury the Elder Scrolls franchise, because after that, everyone's like, yeah, it's just the same thing again, and by that point, whenever it comes out in 4 or 5 years or even more, like you predict, we will have more RPGs. The whole RPG sector will have moved forward even further.
Yeah.
And it will just feel like an outdated replica of something Bethesda should have released 15 years ago. And then I don't know where this is going to go, whether then... I'm not predicting that they shut down the studio, but I think this will be the end of Todd Howard as the leader or the CEO, head of this company.
I don't know about that. I don't think so. Because I thought the same thing with Phil Spencer when he pivoted into 100% into the, what's it called? What's it called, Xbox Player One or whatever? Yeah, Game Pass. Yeah, and he's still there. I think Todd Howard is just he's the Godfather. Unfortunately, maybe when he dies, they'll probably replace him with like an AI Todd Howard.
But
so,
Starfield already left a big dent in this company. Starfield is like, nobody liked that game. It was It was the next big Bethesda game, and nobody liked it. And if now Elder Scrolls 6 come out and nobody likes that either, even sales are good.
Yeah, true.
At some point, Microsoft, as the owner, will say, bro, look, man, we have a reputation to upkeep here. We need... because, let's be honest, Bethesda is one of their head studios. This is one of the biggest players they have.
Absolutely.
You know, they're huge. So...
yeah.
So they need them to innovate. They need to do something new, something fresh. But I think Elder Scrolls 6 will not be that. That's my prediction. But who knows? I was wrong before.
For sure. For sure. And the last thing about Starfield as well is I 100%... They wanted that game to be a franchise. They wanted that game to be what Sting was to WCW. They wanted that game to be the new franchise of Bethesda. And, well, you know, it flopped like a Looney Tunes cartoon. But, you know,
it really
Godspeed,
did.
Bethesda. Godspeed.
It's over. It's over for them. I swear to God, man. It's over. And it's all down to the creation engine. That's their downfall. That's my theory, at least.
We'll see if the Toddster can do it one more time. It's like Batman putting on the Batsuit, fighting Superman one last time. And Superman is a financial disaster, of course.
Dude, I hope so. I hope he can do it one more time. And I hope that Elder Scrolls 6 will be great.
Same. Trust me.
But I don't... Yeah, I know. This is like... This would be like, you know, for you, it's like God himself came down to Earth if we would ever get a good Elder Scrolls game again. But I think not in the foreseeable future.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean,
there you have it.
Such is the tale.
That's what it is.
Well, Godspeed, Bethesda.
Godspeed, Todd. This is how we ended the Ubisoft one as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, God have mercy on their souls.
Yeah. Yeah, that should be our outro always. Godspeed.
Godspeed. May God show mercy on them. That's right. All right. Subscribe, leave a comment, do the things. Everyone have a great day.
All right.